Subcommittee.
There we go.
Sorry, I guess I'm ahead of you. This planning and zoning meeting, a Zoom meeting on 7/23/2026. It's a subcommittee, a meeting to discuss some of the regs that we're going over and everything. And one of the primary ones tonight that we're going to deal with is the NLE, sorry. And also part of it will be the home occupancy. I think Tara says we're gonna not really discuss, has to do with the gravel operation stuff, because the primary committee member isn't in here tonight. He's on vacation. I'm glad he is, more or less. He deserves it. So once we get going here, Tara's going to be more or less doing everything in an orderly fashion. And if anybody needs to ask a question as we're going along, just say, Mr. Chair, and I'll direct you right to Tara, so we don't have any confusion. Is that understood?
Yes.
I know it's going to be hard for us, but we're going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't think it's going to be a problem, because we're not in-house, so to speak. But it's kind of hard to hold a flag here and everybody do it. But we'll just move on with it, because it's really a subcommittee. It's nothing. It's not a real public meeting, so to speak. So, Tara, if anybody else has got anything to add on to me, say to me now, say it, and because I'm going to turn it over to Tara. And Tara, you will have the so-called floor.
Great, thanks, JBL. So I'm going to screen share in a second. We do have some citizen guests in the room, just for their own sake, so they know we do not have citizens' comments on the agendas in these meetings. I'm going to be screen sharing. For members of the commission who want to participate in the discussion, it's easiest if you put your hand up using that function. If you can't find it or can't figure it out, just take yourself off mute. But I can generally see the order in which people raise their hands. So bear with me one second, and I'm going to share screen.
Before you go on, Tara, how many members we have in tonight?
So attending so far, JBL, Ray, Steve, Kais, Joe, Scott, Ryan, and Cindy, and obviously myself. Poplawski, I believe, is going to be running a little late.
Okay. Is Ryan Canoia isn't in?
Yeah, he is. I said Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I apologize.
Okay.
I'm here.
For some reason, my share. Oh, there's my share tray. Okay.
So we got a good amount of commissioners tonight, which is good.
Yeah, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 commissioners, and presumably Dave's coming in as well. So
okay.
You don't actually need a quorum since you're not voting on anything, but you have one.
Well, yeah, that's good. Like I said.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we will do this as we have always done. We'll just go through it in order. The stuff at the beginning of the document, I think, is pretty simple. It's mostly stuff related to definitions tied to Public Act 25-1. I will read through them. If anybody wants me to stop, do put your hand up. If it looks like I'm not calling on you because I can't see you, don't be afraid to butt in. As JBL mentioned, there is a section going back to the gravel mining and the exemptions. I do want to skip that because Santos contributed some content that I haven't spoken to him about yet. And then hopefully maybe at least half of the meeting we can spend on the home ocs and NLEs. Okay, so suggested definitions to add. I'll just read them. And again, if anybody has any questions, just stop me. Suggesting adding a definition for cottage court. a group of small 1 or 2 story detached structures on an undivided lot arranged around a shared court or yard, also known as a cottage cluster. A cottage court is a type of middle housing. To our existing definition of townhouse dwellings, just adding one phrase to align it closer with the way the term is now defined in the statutes according to 25(1). That phrase is each unit extends from foundation to roof and has exterior walls on at least 2 sides. So the whole definition reads dwelling, townhouse, a single-family dwelling unit constructed in a row of at least 3 such units, in which each unit has its own front and rear access to the outside. Each unit extends from foundation to roof and has exterior walls on at least 2 sides, and each unit is separated from any other unit by 1 or more common vertical fire-resistant walls. Another new definition related to 25(1) is for middle housing, a residential form which is either 1, a single building containing not less than 3 dwelling units, but not more than 9 units, including but not limited to triplexes, perfect sixes, and townhouses, or 2, a cottage court of 3 to 9 units on an undivided lot. And then 2 more new suggested added definitions, both tied to 25(1). The perfect six, a 3-story residential building with a central entrance containing 2 dwelling units per story. And summary review by commission, a level of review in which the application is brought before the commission for review and action at a public meeting. As set forth in Connecticut General Statutes 8-2R, summary review means able to be approved in accordance with the terms of a zoning regulation or regulations, and without requiring that a public hearing be held, a variance, special permit, or special exception be granted, or some other discretionary zoning action be taken, other than a determination that a site plan is in conformance with applicable zoning regulations. Does anybody have any questions on those definitions? Ray, I see you.
Yeah, I don't think that that any of this should be able to get around without having a hearing.
So that is actually.
Why do we even have a commission if we're not going to have hearings?
So you still have plenty of things where you can have public hearings and special permits, Ray, but what you cannot do according to Public Act 25(1) is require a public hearing for a middle housing application as defined in the new act, and that's what these definitions cover. So if it's
okay, and then I also don't believe that we should be having that cottage thing. Every place should have its own lot.
So a cottage court is another one of the things called out in 25(1). It's a very distinct form of middle housing. It is referred to in the Public Act, and it's one of the things covered.
In the Communist Act. Okay, go on.
Okay. Did you have any other questions about those definitions, Ray?
No, but I don't like them. I'm hoping that we get a new governor and he rescinds this law right off the bat.
Okay, I understand that you have objections to the Public Act, Ray. All right, so
hey,
also
I have one also on that along the lines of what Ray is saying. So if we're talking about the summary review by commission and site plan review by commission, I think that we may want to take a closer look at the definitions and what these are actually applying for. Because I know you just said that this relates to middle housing.
Yeah.
I think that it should be maybe more clear in the definition that is what the intent of this is, so that it's not a blanket statement that applies to all applications that come in. That may be obvious because it's in that section, but just something to think about. And I think we should have maybe another more detailed discussion on these differences, because these are really, really important points that kind of change the structure of planning and zoning commissions. And this was one of the main points when we were at offsite meetings, particularly one that John Likey and I attended an offsite dinner where there were many people that were in opposition across the state from various areas of Connecticut, not just one area, but all different counties. And they were all a bit concerned about some of these changes, particularly around the site plan review by commission and the summary review by commission. So I think that we need to be maybe a little bit more detail oriented, and come up with, maybe some edits and some thoughts around this. Because I noticed in your red lines that it said that they are more closely with the language of the statutes, but they're not actually the statutes themselves. So there could be, I guess, maybe a little bit of room for interpretation there, or a slight amendment to the actual state statute. So these are things that I caught when I was reading it this morning, and I just wanted to give it a little bit more of a thoughtful approach instead of just putting it on paper and skipping over it, because this is literally a structural change to the way that planning and zoning has been done for, I don't know, the past 50 years since it's been around. So this is not I just want everyone on the commission to really understand the magnitude of this. And this is not a small change. This is a structural change. So that's all I have.
Cindy, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to know if these particular definitions are going to be included in the table of uses on each district, or is that permissible under the new act?
So we will get to
Cindy.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
we will get to that in the discussion draft for sure.
Okay, all right.
And I can tell you that my understanding of the term site plan review by commission, after having extensive conversation with my colleagues across the state, our council, people working on this, is that it is in every way synonymous with summary review by commission, and site plan review by commission are in every way synonymous. You already have things in your regulations that you review under the site plan review by commission process, which is the same as summary review. It is something that you review as a commission, but do not go to public hearing on. Like all applications, if they are fully legal and compliant with your regulations, you are obliged to approve them, but you may set some discretionary conditions. Nothing in your process would actually change. But as you can see here, I am making a document-wide recommendation to replace the term site plan review by commission with summary review by commission to make it less confusing for applicants and to streamline it to the new Public Act. Joe Perotti, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a.
And before you say that anything, Joe, just for the sake of the minutes, Dave Poplawski entered at 7:14. Go ahead, Joe.
So my question is, was site plan review by commission, is that previous statutory language? Is it language that commissions have, there was a commission, a term that commissions across the state used as a term of practice, or was it something we came up with ourselves?
Site plan review by commission, you mean? Yes,
the existing language.
It's an excellent question. I know that it was that language construction was given to us essentially at the beginning of our whole cloth update process. Summary review by commission is definitely a term that is now sort of a part of, I'm sorry, I'm trying to like type and talk at the same time. I shouldn't do that. that definitely came up related to what is now Public Act 25-1 and the approval of mill housing. Whether the authors of the act gave any thought to how those two terms relate to one another or not, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that the people working on it now have effectively confirmed for me that they are synonymous. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but I mean, yeah, no, I understand the point that summary review is essentially synonymous with site plan review. I was just trying to figure out where we had that came from the NECOG draft we got, do you think, or?
I think it came from actually not NECOG, but from we at the time were working with two sets of consultants. NECOG sort of had the whole package, but we had, as a part of the bar grant, a sidebar consultation with CME and with John Guskowski, who actually used to be a planner in Thompson and has since left CME and is part of Tyche Planning and Policy Group, which is one of the consulting groups to the state. So my recollection of the 2019 draft was that because the table of uses was something that was proposed to us by CME, and we folded that into the rest of the NECOG draft, and that site plan review by commission was part of the CME consultation. The CME consultants are now, both of the principals for Tyche are former CME consultants. So when they tell me that summary review is the same as site plan review, it's the same people who wrote the stuff. Okay. Cindy, go ahead.
So on site plan review by the commission requires they comply with section, I think it's Article 4, Section 4.4 AB. Is that going to transfer over to summary review, that they still have to comply with
yes.
The site plan review?
My understanding is yes.
Okay.
Obviously, before we finalize any changes, I toss it all back to council for a once-over. So if we get anything wrong, he will let us know. But my understanding of that is exactly that. It's exactly the same. Nothing in the process that you currently would use for site plan review by commission would change by changing the name to summary review by commission. I am recommending that you make that a universal change within the document wherever it occurs for clarity for applicants.
I just want to go on record and say that I am absolutely opposed to using any language from John G. I do not endorse his opinions. We sat through a 2-hour seminar with him speaking and just dictating to us. And I think that we need significant further review on this topic, meaning an entire subcommittee go over this. These are structural changes, as I said. This is not a small matter, and this does not, this is an entire day. So if we start getting into this today, we are going to burn the entire 2 hours going through this, and we probably could. And I'm going to guess that at least half the people on this call are not aware of the magnitude of some of these changes. And this is not necessarily all from 25-1, and it may not even be from NECOG, but outside consultants are not the people that we need to be writing regulations for this town. We, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, are tasked with that, and you are a valuable resource here to help us, but you are absolutely not going to put this in without the commission fully understanding this. So I reject all of this for now until further review.
Your objection has been noted in the sidebar comments. Ray, I see your hand up.
I agree with Ryan 100%. The gentleman you're talking about, and everything about this, all this stuff, it's all partisan. There ain't. It's all. We're all being told you have to do this. You have to do this. The guy doesn't have nothing. It's he talks for the state. Oh man, here I go with my my blood stuff. He's a consultant, but he's not the person that writes stuff, and we should not be going just because he says that's the way we should be. I've sat in on webinars with that gentleman and speaking about, let's turn your towns into cities. And as soon as I hear that, I've sat in on more webinars than what I tell you people about, and I shut them off when I hear them guys talking like that. Let's take this land because there's city sewer there and because there's farmland around it. But you know how I feel about it, and I back Ryan 100% on what he just said.
Okay, I've noted it in the comments. I will just remind the folks, and I understand you have strong objections. Public Act 25-1 is the law of the state. It is the law of the state. So the suggestions here that are related to 25-1 are related to a very, I would say, narrow reading of Public Act 25-1, looking at what is absolutely bare minimum requirements, because I know that there are some objections. Steve, I see your hand up.
Yes, I was thinking, Chair, that maybe in the proposed language, you could associate or show us where that language is associated in PA 25-1 in future meetings, just so we could do a comparison.
Yes, let me make a note of that here, because what I can do for the Monday monthly meeting, this language to 25-1. I can do an excerpt because I know I sent you guys all like the full text. Obviously, that's a lot, but I should be able to give you a side-by-side of why I've constructed it the way I have. I will say there are some minor variations in some of these. You'll see here that I refer to 3 to 9 units, not 2 to 9 units, which is how the Public Act defines middle housing. But your regulations are already treat duplexes like single family housing. So that's why that's slightly different. So there will be slight variations, but they should be variations I can clarify for you side by side on Monday.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, happy to do so.
Tara, I think you misprint, you put 24-1 instead of 25.
Oh, yeah, it's just notes for me, but yes, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Does anybody have any more questions about that content before we move on to the next? And this next is also related to 25-1. All right, hearing no further questions.
I just want to say one more time, I don't necessarily object to 25-1. I object to the interpretations of the consultants and your interpretations of 25-1 on this. And I would prefer to have this done through a lawyer and through the commissioners who have opposition to it to be able to make their own edits and go through the legal channel, because this is such an important matter and this is going to drive the next many years of development. And as we all have agreed prior, we don't want to build out in the RRAD, so we need to make sure that's protected. So to the comment earlier around that, and as we all know, DMRD is wide open game, and we're all very supportive of building there. So I just want to be distinguished. We're not anti-growth or anti-housing growth. We are trying to be very specific about the districts and where the supplies and what additional, let's call it, additional authority or power that is granted to you specifically, Tara, and to people who are not commissioners who are who are elected on P&Z. So this is a really, really big deal, and we have attended all these offsites to not hear just from us, but to hear from unanimously across the board in the state, especially at this dinner that John and I attended. I mean, it was unanimous, the pushback to these topics was unbelievable, and you weren't there to hear it. And maybe you spend a lot of time with a certain group of, the people that are in the more of the one party rule camp, but I don't think that John G necessarily represents the values and the way that we would write it in particular. So I just oppose to him in particular having input into our regulations. That I just want to be really clear on that, because what you wrote Knoyer objects to using language as used in the Public Act. That's not really what I said. That's your interpretation again. So a lot of this is very subjective, and this is a much bigger discussion. So what I'm suggesting is that we, kind of keep moving along, don't harp on this the whole meeting, and that we have a separate subcommittee just on this, because this is going to be a very, very big drawn out discussion. This is not going to be solved today.
Tara, excuse me, let me step in with Ryan. Ryan, you got all that information on when we were down at that meeting for the Federation?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I suggest you put all that information together, and we can add that in so every other commissioners that haven't really gone to some of these other outside venues that some of us have things. So if we take that information, I think I've got some of it too, but it will probably relate to what we're trying to do here with this. I agree with you on some of the stuff, but I think the information that we have, I think, should be pertinent to this, what we're going on, and make sure that everybody gets a copy. Just make it up good, whatever it takes. I don't care if it's 4, 5, 6 pages. Bring it in, have Tara or Cindy, make up copies to give to or give them that so they can send it email to everybody so they can read it and everything, and then we got something to work with.
Thank you, John. That's a great idea, and I can't stress enough that I want to have fairness and transparency across the board, and I want all the commissioners, not just a few, to have all the information and being able to understand the magnitude of this and why I have been talking about this every single month since October, since Senator Gordon was in to speak to us. So I just want to be very, sharing of information and notes, because you and I in particular have attended almost all of these offsites, and we and myself are probably guilty of not sharing all of it publicly to the group, which we need to do. So that's a great point. Thank you, John. Mr. Chair.
Like Tara, as soon as he gets that information to you, hopefully he can have it to you within a week or so. But it's something that I think we need to do, because what you and I discussed a little bit this afternoon, this here 25-1 is not going to be done in one night, So I think more information that we get to the other commissioners, I think will be very helpful.
So as the experienced commissioners, of course, know, but the new commissioners may not, this is not a one-night process. This is the beginning of a several months review process where it is expected that you guys will discuss and refine the language suggested and presented here. I will again stress that the changes suggested here related to 25-1 I derived very closely from the language of the Public Act, but as was requested, I'll try to bring you in side by sides for Monday. Are we ready to move on to the next bit?
If there's no objection, please do put Tara.
Okay, so again, and this is, I was going to say the last piece of the 25-1, but that's actually not true. So the other change that almost all towns are going to have to make, and we are no exception, is a change to the procedure for amendment, the petition process for the public for amendments to the zoning regulations. So as it currently reads, and I'll read what your current regulations say, which is here in the part that's unchanged, and then the boldface strike through. and then I'll read what the new Public Act language requires to change, essentially in the percentages of the members of the public who have to file the petition and how the commission votes on it. So as currently written in 275 3.6 amendment procedure, letter F, amendments to the zoning regulations or revisions to the zoning map shall be adopted only by a majority vote of the members of the commission present. Actually, yes, that is still correct. Except where, pursuant to CGS 8-3B, a formal protest petition objecting to the proposed revision to the zoning map is filed at or before a public hearing on the subject revision. Before I go on, let me just note that Jane entered the meeting at 7:31. That's for the minutes. Okay, so currently, your regulations read as follows. Such a protest petition must be appropriately signed by the owners of 20% or more of the area of the lots included in such a proposed change, or of the lots within 500 feet in all directions of the property included in the proposed change. An appropriately signed petition has the following on the signatory lines: an original ink signature, the printed name of the signatory, and the address of the signatory. 2, when such a protest is appropriately filed, the proposed change shall not be adopted except by a vote of 2/3 of all members of the commission. That's as currently written. With the new 25A requirements, and I just noticed that there's something that I do actually need to copy over. Hold on one second. 1, if a protest against a proposed change is filed at or before a hearing with the commission signed by the owners of A, 50% or more of the area of the lots included in such proposed change, B, 50% or more of the owners of the lots included in such area, or C, 50% or more of the lots within 500 feet in all directions of the property included in the proposed change. Such change shall not be adopted except by a majority vote of all the members of the commission. I actually think I got that wrong. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I think I made a mistake here. I'm going to do something here. So this is, oh, yes, it is. That is correct. That is correct. I apologize. I confused myself. Such change shall not be adopted except by a majority vote of all the members of the commission. 2, a majority of an attendant quorum at the public hearing shall not suffice unless that number shall also be a majority of the full commission. And then what I just added under 3, because I realized that that does not change, I'm going to take that out of strike through. Oops. Well, I'll take that out of strike through later. So the changes from 25.1, bear with me, it is confusing. It used to be a lower percentage of the households in the radius were required to file the petition, but a higher threshold of the members of the commission had to agree to the petition to oppose the change. What the Public Act did was it raised the percentage to 50% of those withstanding, but lowered the threshold for the commission from a 2/3 majority to a simple majority of the full number of the commission. So for you guys, a 2/3 majority would have been 7 of 10. A simple majority is 6 of 10. But if only 9 show up, your simple majority isn't 5, it's still 6. I know that that is confusing. I tried to be as clear as I could. Does anybody need me to go over that again?
Tara?
Yes, Jane.
I can't see anything And I am a visual person and I'm having difficulty with this. I am seeing nothing. All I'm seeing is everybody's name on here. No screen, no nothing.
Does everybody else still have my screen share?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
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 Jane, what device are you on?
My laptop. Let me go out and come back in and see if I can get it.
Before you do that, Jane, do you see up in like the top right? It's like there's an icon with like a rectangle with 3 small squares to the right of it.
3 smalls. I gallery view, speaker view, smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd already tried that and I can't get it.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, I'm gonna go out and come back in and see. I had trouble getting on, so let me see if I can come back in.
Okay, we'll keep our eye out for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So while she's doing that, does anybody have any other questions regarding this change related to 25-1? Okay. Moving on, and this I think is the last set of changes, yes, related to 25-1. You will note that I have recommended changes to the tables of uses, adding middle housing, which I think gets to maybe a question Cindy had, because we've now defined it according to, or theoretically, we've now defined it according to the Public Act. I've recommended adding it to 4. I would say 3 of those are very clear, covered by the Public Act, and 1 of them would be discretionary for you guys. Knowing you as I do, I expect you will opt not to include it, but I wanted to just offer it up there as a suggestion, and we can strike it. But those 4 districts would be the CRD, BDD, TCDD, and DMRD. And of those 4, I would say the Common Residential District, which I initially thought would be covered by the requirements of 25-1, is not necessarily covered by them. So you certainly may opt not to include that as having middle housing with site plan review by commission. The benefit of including it, obviously, is that it does have full utility access, so it can physically support the higher density, but that is entirely discretionary for you guys. And so we'll pause here if anybody wants to make comments.
No, Terry, you said the CRD.
CRD, I would say, is discretionary for sure.
Yeah, but it also would have to, we'd have to, in my personal feeling is that how far does the utilities go of the CRD? You know, where the CRD district is.
Sure. So the simple answer to your question, John, is the CRD maps to the utility footprint.
Okay.
So anything in the CRD should have full public water and sewer access. We've double checked that a couple of times. Doesn't mean there's not something in there that might be an error anyway, but we've been pretty thorough about that. That is why I initially thought it would definitely be covered by 25-1, but I've since come to understand that because it's not really a mixed use district, it is not necessarily covered unless you want to include it in that middle level of review for the middle housing.
Okay. That gives us the option one way or the other, yes or no. That's all. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. And I'll just drop your comment in here.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions about those suggested districts to include middle housing in the tables of uses with the level of review, site plan review by commission?
Hey, this is Ryan. I just have one. I want to make sure that everyone understands the difference between the DMRD and the BDD, the Business Development District. I think it might be worth clarifying. We do have a couple of newer members on. And my other comment would be that, related back to the 2/3 majority, this is something that I've always kind of thought about and thought about a lot. 2/3 majority is 0.666, 7 into infinity. So effectively, that would be rounded up to 7 by most standard math. But I realize you can't have a percentage of a person. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone thinks about that too, because the law of numbers would suggest that 2/3 majority would be 7, not 6.
Yes, that is actually what I said.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I guess I didn't hear that. So.
Yeah, no, it's super confusing, Ryan. Believe me. I had to look at it twice just now while I was reading it, and I looked at it multiple times when I was writing it. So yes. But to your other point, which is a good one actually, because we do have some new folks on the call, the BDD is the Business Development District. It is effectively a mixed-use district. It does not have public utility access, although the portion of the BDD closer to downtown could theoretically connect in the future. The portion of the BDD out on the other side of the highway, it's virtually impossible that will ever connect to public utilities. And so Business Development District does allow sort of a more commercially intense profile of uses, but also does allow, in the current table of uses, residences and multifamily housing. There are definitely residences in the BDD. There may or may not currently be multifamilies. I would have to look at that more closely. But it's mixed use, and that's sort of the trigger for the 25-1 requirements for the missing middle housing review. And then the DMRD, and again, this is mostly for the benefit, I think, of Scott, really, who is the newest member here, is the Downtown Mill Rehabilitation District. The boundaries of that are on the south, where Route 12 picks up the 395 on-ramp, and to the north, it's where routes 12 and 131 split. It has full access to all public water and sewer utilities within the town, and has traditionally smaller lot sizes, traditionally was the commercial center of the town, yada, 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 was the mill district. Pretty obvious why we chose that district to be our most concentrated development district. And then the third mixed use district that we have is the Thompson Corridor Development District. That is routes 12 and 131 headed north and route 12 headed south. There is limited public water access to the north, but public sewer access without water access to the south. So the south stretch of Route 12 is a little more developable than the north stretch of routes 12 and 131, but they do have some public utility access, and they are obviously both what passes for a major travel route in the town of Thompson as state highways.
Okay.
Any questions on that? And I'll direct that particularly at you, Scott, since you're new.
So, for the middle housing, do they definitely have to have the access to the sewer and the water?
No, they don't. That was an early way that I thought they were. That's an early way I thought they were headed with the new legislation, and as was explained to me at the most recent explainer for these, no, the trigger is not necessarily public utility access. It is that it is a mixed use purpose district. It doesn't necessarily mean that those other districts would be highly desirable for that form of residential development, but it is covered by 25-1 as having that summary review level requirement. Does that make sense?
So someone could have some type of building plan that doesn't have access to the public water or sewer?
Yes. So all right. So let's create a hypothetical out of that. Let's say that, and we'll use a lot that I know isn't coming up for sale, but is in one of these districts. So, as you're headed into Putnam, right across from the water treatment plant, there's that grassy field with the billboard on it.
Yes.
Someone could propose a middle housing development on that property. It would have access to public sewer, but would not have access to public water. So in their site plan, they would have to show their well capacity. And we had an approved townhome project a couple of years ago that did just that. And that was actually before any of this. And it was not really middle housing. It was a multifamily housing proposal because of the number of units, something like 60 units. They had to show their community wells on there. They had to show that it had the appropriate level of flow, gallons per minute, or however they calculate that. All of that had to be shown on the engineered site plan. So just because something is subject to summary review doesn't mean that they don't have a requirement to show all the engineering details in their plan. They do. They have to show how it would connect to whatever public utilities are available. If there's no public utilities available, it has to show how they are handling septic. They would have to, so it doesn't exempt anybody from engineering requirements. The only thing it does is it eliminates that public hearing thing where the neighbors come out and they say how much you're ruining their lives for building an apartment building or whatever. That is the main difference between summary review and the special permit process. And in those three mixed use districts, the act is pretty clear. That's where the summary review would qualify. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about these recommendations? All right, hearing none, we'll scroll on.
Just to be clear on one thing, Terry, at the end, you just said summary review and special permit and kind of tying those words together. Did you intend to do that, or was that?
Only by means of contrast.
Okay, by means of contrast. Okay, just wanted to make sure that was.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the section that I would like to skip until Santos is able to join us because he has some alternate suggestions. So I want to give him that respect. And then, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we all came tonight. The home occupation and neighborhood limited enterprise suggestions. Several of you, Steve, Ryan, Joe, and Cindy attended the workshop a couple of weeks ago, so some of this will be very familiar to you. I believe you all received the full summary report that I wrote up for that. And what I've included here is a briefer version of the two rewrites of the section, the sort of the shorter, sweeter one, and then the one with all the bells and whistles. It's been our habit that I read through the changes. I'll continue apace, but please feel free to break in, stop, ask questions, especially those of you who were at the workshop who want to contribute some more comments. So we'll start with option 1 for 275 14.1 home occupations and neighborhood limited enterprises. So I'm only reading sections that have changes suggested. So again, in option 1, starting with neighborhood limited enterprises, a simple language change here that I think is closer to the reality. Currently reads, neighborhood limited enterprises, NLEs, are small businesses that may reasonably be pursued in a residential district. I believe the more accurate description of that is on a residential property. Sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but I think it is more related to individual properties than districts. That is subject to your discussion, but which may be shown to cause sufficient intensification of use as to require review and approval by the commission. Such intensification may include, but is not limited to, increased need for parking, increased outdoor activity associated with the business, or increased vehicle traffic. Applicants for an NLE must submit a site plan for review and approval by the commission according to the requirements in Article 4 of 275 4.4 of these regulations, except in the Lake District, where a special permit is required pursuant to 275 4.4C. The NLE shall be considered a permitted use following approval of the site plan, provided that the application meets both the standards for a home occupation with the additional standards and exceptions as described below. And you can see I just changed the way that language is constructed a little bit. I think that's a little tidier grammatically. So anything in bold here is new text. Number 1. Regardless of the minimum lot size of the underlying district, an NLE shall require a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet. The purpose of this requirement is to provide sufficient separation from neighboring residences, allowing for greater setbacks and screening buffer zones. And as you can see in my red text beneath, the reason I've suggested 80,000 square feet, it's not entirely random. It is twice the size of the minimum of our largest minimum lot size. And the participants in that workshop pretty universally seemed to be interested in setting some kind of more generous minimum lot size to, I guess, to show consideration for neighbors. Like I say, 80,000 square feet is twice 40,000 square feet, which is your largest minimum lot size. I wouldn't set it any higher than that. You certainly could make a strong argument for setting it lower. Does anybody have any thoughts there?
Well, Tara, the only thing with that is that to me, what the whole purpose and you looking up and asking around, and I made my call, my calls to some people I know throughout the state, is that with the NLE, the way we're looking at it is that we already had a test case, actually maybe 2, but it goes to show you, if somebody owns 3 acres or 4 acres and wants to do this business or whatever it's going to be, but where do we put the stop of how much growth they're going to have? If they're going to have more growth than what they, everybody starts out small, and eventually you grow. That's how it is, and we want the small businesses. But if somebody is going to grow, then he has to start thinking. If he thinks he's going to be expanding to, say, I'm just going to use this as an example. You went from 2 or 3 vehicles, which they usually start out as, because that's how a lot of them start out. And next thing you know, they got 5, 6, 7, because they need those extra vehicles because they're taking on more work, and they take doing bigger stuff, bigger trees or whatever they're doing. And so sometimes a good acre, if they're going to use it, long as it's petition off, I'll go with 80,000 max, but they got to have the total acreage around that too, with the home or whatever it is. Like, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but
can you Can I ask you to just sort of narrow your focus? Are you, I just want to be sure that I'm understanding what you're getting at.
Well,
Are you getting at that you like the 80,000 square feet as the minimum lot size to propose an NLE? Or are you saying you think it would be okay on an acre?
On an acre? Not really, because the gross 80. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself on it. I'm looking at it at a different angle here, but
Yeah, I just want to be sure that I understand what you're trying to say here.
Just let me get my thoughts back on that, because I'm just going by what we're going through. We want to keep the RRAD pretty much, but people do have a right if they want to start to have their business on their property. But how can we have somebody have something on that property if, like with me, I'll use myself. I got 2.5 acres here. I could get away with it, having 4 or 5 vehicles to run a business and still have it secluded from the neighbors. But there are places that some people just don't care. So we have to give respect to the neighbors. So that's why we say, okay, you got to put up some type of fencing or put up them Aphrodites or whatever to create a barrier from the road or from the neighbors or something like that. So this NLE thing is a good thing, but I think we're going to have, we might have some good opposition on it too. So we need to be very careful what we're going to use for square footage too.
Right. Well, that's obviously why we have these meetings. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you like the 80,000 square foot minimum for an NLE? Is that what I hear?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it gives them some elbow room. Let's put it that way. It gives you elbow room. See, I got 2 acres. So there's the 80,000. I got 80,000 square feet right here on my property. And I got enough room. I'm looking at it now as I own a business that I'm doing, whatever it is, that I got enough room to park 3 or 4 or 5 vehicles on, in a certain area. But long as I keep it excluded from the neighbors, like trees.
Well, we also have more stuff that we're going to get to in this that addresses that. I do see that Ray's got his hand up, so he's obviously got a point to make. Go ahead, Ray.
I'd try to go a little bit more. Setback feet of 40 feet really ain't much in residential neighborhood. Houses used to have to be 25 feet off a property line, and to put a business even 40 feet, that's not much. I'd like the 80,000 square feet, but I think the setbacks to an adjacent residential area should be a little bit. There should be a little bit more elbow room there, in my opinion.
Okay, so you've jumped ahead, but we can do that. That's fine. So let me add that comment here. Yeah, go ahead, JBL.
Just what Ray's got a good point there. I'm going to have to agree with that. 40 feet. All depends. You see, now I'm looking at it's all depends on where the structure, like the house that they're using for their office, where is it located on that 80,000 square feet? So, okay, see, and I'm looking at my house is over roughly 150 to not quite 200 feet away from the road. And I got all these trees in front of me. So, and on the side of the house, I got a big fence. I got this, I got that. So I could tuck them in and still be I could still have 40 feet from the boundary line of my neighbor on the right or the left to put whatever such vehicles, and still have 30 feet or 40 feet from my house to that area that I would be parking the vehicles.
Gotcha. Dave, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with the 80,000 square feet here. I think that, as we look at these applications come in and we need to make adjustments, we have other rewrites where we could make them, but I think that's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like there's pretty good feeling for the 80K square feet.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So we did jump ahead a little bit, but I'll read it because it's new text. So number 2, regardless of the minimum setback requirement of the underlying district, an NLE proposed on a lot which abuts a residential parcel shall require minimum side and rear setbacks of 40 feet. Front setback requirements shall be consistent with the requirements of the underlying district. The purpose of this requirement is to minimize any visual or other quality of life impacts on neighboring households without imposing undue burdens on the NLE. Dr. Perotti Brown.
So if we're talking about an NLE, we are not talking about new constructions, correct?
You might be.
Uh-huh.
Right. So the NLE, and because we're not looking at like all the stuff that there were no edits suggested, an NLE can take place in an accessory building.
Right. Which could be a new
So
construction.
in theory, that could be a brand new accessory building.
Yeah. And then would this setback requirement apply to all activity, all equipment, all et cetera, et cetera?
I would say yes, but Cindy's got her hand up, so I will let her comment on that since she's our enforcement guru.
Okay, so what did Joe just say that you want me to comment on?
Go ahead, Joe.
My question was if the setbacks would require or refer to not just constructions, not just structures, but any sort of equipment storage outside of a structure, activity, etc.
Oh yeah, I believe the setback should require everything, the equipment, etc. Yes. You know, your setback, that's where your business starts, right there at the setback. Does that make sense? Yep.
It does, and I agree.
Okay. My concern on the 80,000 square feet, from what I listened to, the various suggestions and various questions from our seminar that you gave, is the type of business. How much property do you need for a particular type of business? So our sample, our test case was a tree cutting company. Okay, that's huge. And he became huge for Homoc and NLE. But what about a store? A country store or hair. I don't know. I got the impression that people at that seminar were more concerned about the size that relates to the type of business.
Okay.
So that's my comment.
Okay. I see Poplawski and then Nickerson.
So my first question was, if they were putting up a building, the building requirements would offset the NLE setbacks, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure So in most districts, in the RRAD, your side setbacks are 20 feet. So 40 feet is double the existing side setback, sides and rear. So if it was new construction, like if you just wanted to put up a regular old residential shed, you could be within 20 feet. If you're putting up a new workshop, whatever, you've got to give an extra 20 feet to your neighbor as constructed here.
So what you're trying to say, and I think to answer your question, Dave, is that you're setting the setbacks for a structure that's being built specifically for an NLE. So you would have those guidelines which that applicant would have to follow.
Oh, so I think I follow you now. You're concerned about an existing structure.
Okay.
That is more or less than 40 feet. Is that your question?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right,
yeah.
so let me make a note to consider solutions for
Good
that.
point, David. Good point.
Sure. To David, Dave, if the existing building is 20 feet offset from the property line, that means we could make concessions to them that say you can't park any vehicles on the side of the 20 feet. That would take away. But anything on the opposite side, if he's got the room to go from that structure that's pre-existing to the main structure, is if he wants to park 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles, he should be able to do it. But as long as it's not on the side where the neighbor is, so the building itself becomes like a fence, so to speak, but then we have to also decide, adding to this, what time does this guy gonna start? What time can he start? What time he has to finish? Where he's gonna, if whatever his help is gonna be or whatever, now we got to think about all that coming into play. But I personally, I think it wouldn't matter if the building is already 20, it's pre-existing, but he cannot put anything on the side of it to the property line of the neighbor.
Yeah, but if you're doing the NLE, if let's just say a barn is 40 feet, say it's 20 feet, the shed, right?
Right.
It's quiet right now. I go for an NLE and I want to have grinding. I'm grinding knife blades in this thing all day long. Well, I don't have my 40-foot setbacks because it's an existing building, but I'm disturbing the neighbors. That's where I was going.
Oh,
right?
okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you, Dave. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a good point, Dave. I'll have to think on solutions for that. Because obviously, yes, it's easy to say if you're building something new, you've got to give the 40 feet. But if somebody's trying to take advantage of an existing structure on there that was constructed without regard to such things, I don't know what the answer to that is off the cuff, but I'll give it some thought.
I would define it as a legally permitted structure too, Tara. I would take it that next step because people throw up bonds all the time or sheds or whatever. So it needs to be a properly permitted building, existing building for consideration. So, you know what I'm getting at.
Good
yeah, I do.
on that one, Dave.
To legally.
What's that?
I said that was a good catch, a good call on that one.
Yeah,
thanks, Ray.
I agree. I see Steve and Jane.
Yeah, I was going to just chime in on the same topic. This is Steve. So, I think the type of business may make a difference. So, for instance, if it's a law office or a financial advisor just working out of an office from their home, do they really need an 80,000-foot lot and a 40-foot setback? Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, so it's less apparent because of the way this is constructed than the full version that you have. The types of businesses that you just suggested would just be home occupations. So remember, we're in this second category now. The home occupation is probably not really going to change much.
Got
it. So yes, I take your point, but it's covered under other existing language.
Perfect.
Jane, and then I think Scott's got a hand up. Is that for realsy, Scott? Yeah. Okay. So, But Jane first.
Okay, to chime in, I agree, listening to everything, the 40-foot setback, to do something like, I forget who said it, Dave, whatever, you have a shed that's already there, it's 20 feet away from the neighbor's property, and they want to put a grinding business in there. No. 40 feet for something like that. We are going to have to start going down the line and defining the businesses. If somebody's going to run something out of their home, that's totally different, like an accounting business or something like that. But anything else that is going to disrupt the neighbors should be the 40 feet. And I'll go with the 40 feet. Even if they already have a building in place, no. 40 feet is 40 feet, and it's going to depend on the business. So we're going to have to start, saying, okay, you can have a little office right there as long as if it's only 20 feet, you can have a little office and do something out of it with that. But You cannot if you are going to have something that disrupts the neighbors. That's my biggest thing. We have neighbors that are already in place, going along with what everybody has said. So I do not believe that if you already have a shed on your property and it's the 20 feet, you cannot put something in that is going to disrupt the neighbors. Absolutely
Thank
not.
you. Thank you, Jane. Scott, what do you got?
My concern would be, the 80,000 square feet, sounds like it would work in most cases, and the 40-foot setback sounds like it would work. My concern would be a business that has all types of different equipment, and if you have an open area between your neighbor and the neighbor that wants to have the business, and now he's going to stick all types of odd looking equipment all over the place, as in as his business, and this neighbor's going to have to look over and see all this stuff all over the place. Could we have a requirement of a privacy fence or something in that type of situation, or is it just too bad for the neighbor?
No.
No, I think we actually get to that later in the section, so
Yeah.
I'll use that as a prompt to move on, because some of these questions may get answered as we go further on.
Okay,
So we
thank you.
left off with number 2, regardless, the purpose of the requirement is to minimize any visual or other quality of life impacts, yada, yada. 2A, if the lot proposed for the NLE abuts an existing commercial or business parcel without a residential component, then the higher setback requirements shall not apply. Seemed like a reasonable exception. Number 3, an NLE shall not be permitted on a lot served by a driveway shared with other residential lots or on an interior lot stacked behind other residential lots. If the driveway is shared with a business commercial lot, or if the interior lot is stacked behind a business commercial lot, then this prohibition shall not apply. I thought that seemed like a reasonable limitation. Where we have shared driveways or interior lots, obviously any additional traffic is much more impactful on those sharing neighbors. I did have one comment come back that, they were concerned that the interior lot prohibition might exclude something like some of the wedding venues that we have. They are actually on interior lots, and they are generally good neighbors. So, I have no dog in that fight. I can go either way. I thought they were reasonable limitations that you could propose. I see Steve and then Ray. You're on mute, Steve.
Sorry about that. I forgot to lower my hand with the other question.
Oh, so you don't have a new question. Okay, so
I
Ray.
do not. I do not.
Are you there, Ray? Ray, it looks like you've come off mute, but we can't hear you. So I'm gonna move on, but just come on in whenever you're ready, and we'll let you know when we can hear you. Okay, so number 4 is no different than it is currently in the regs. Off-street parking may be required. It's only in here because it would be renumbered. This, I think, gets to what you brought up, Scott, and this is already in your NLE regulations. It would just be renumbered as number 5. Activities or storage associated with the NLE shall not take place outside the residential or a fully enclosed accessory building unless they are screened from view from the street and neighboring properties. An applicant shall be required to provide a statement detailing any anticipated need for outdoor use or storage, which is then subject to review and approval by the ZEO, except it would be the commission in this case because that's a commission review. So I'm just going to change that. So does that satisfy your question, Scott?
Yes, that's what my concern was.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Ray, you still there trying? Oh, I think he probably came out and is going to try to come in again based on it because I don't see him anymore. All right, let's see if Ray comes back in. Okay, so here's some things regarding employees on site for the NLE. This was another topic that we had a lot of input on at the workshop. Would newly be numbered number 6. An NLE shall be subject to the following limitations on employees. A, there shall be no limitations as to the number of remote or off-site employees whose activities occur entirely off the residential premises. B, there shall be a limit of 3 persons other than persons residing on the premises whose activities occur daily on the premises for the full duration of the business hours. C, there shall be a limit of 10 employees other than persons residing on the premises whose activities primarily occur off-site, but who may engage in limited business activity on-site. C1, in the case of a business where the employee's on-site business activity is expected to take place over the course of a full business day, no more than 3 such employees shall engage in such activity at a time on any given day. And 2, in the case of a business where the full number of employees convenes on-site at the start of the day, but the daily business activity occurs off the home property, that activity shall be limited to 1 hour. I constructed this in the morning, but I'm just going to at the beginning and at the end. 1 hour at the beginning and 1 hour at the end of the business day. Just change that. The commission may require the business owner to provide additional buffering or screening of the area where the employees gather, park, prepare for the day. I think that also gets to some of the concerns some of you have raised, to further minimize disturbance to the neighboring households. So what I tried to do there was capture all possible permutations, either that we've already seen or that were raised in the workshop. Definitely, I mean, we already don't have limitations on remote employees, but clarifying that there are no limitations on those. Definitely including a small number of people who could be on site during the day, but also trying to capture what we had in the test case, which was that everybody comes in the morning and then they're gone, but in that morning time, they're all there. Comments, questions, concerns?
Well, what that is, depending on the amount of employees, usually they get there, they got to do their thing, check the equipment out, get them running, and they usually have, usually there's a timeline. They want to get out of there, especially if you own the business and you're the owner and you want your people out of there, get down and start doing the jobs for whatever, how many jobs they got for the day. So if anything, in the course of a day, there might be 1 or 2 people going back there because they got to get something that they need that change what's going on out, what they're doing. That's going to happen. You can't foresee that. But as long as they're there in the morning and their start time, whatever it is, we have to find out what they're going to consider for a start time to begin with. And then you can say, okay, that's going to be your start time. Half an hour before start time should be more than enough, in my opinion. And I'm using my years of experience working in construction. I mean, when you show up to a job, you're always half an hour, 45 minutes. You go out, you go over, you get whatever piece of equipment you're running, so it's ready to roll at 7 o'clock. You're out the door. I mean, you're out there, you're doing your job. And then at the end of the day, you got the extra half an hour, for them to get back, park their stuff, do their stuff, and get out. No linger. If they want to linger, then they can linger in the workshop or wherever it is, like a lot of places. But from my experience of 40 years, you're always a half an hour early. You want to get your stuff going because you don't want to show up at 5 minutes. If you show up 5 to 10 minutes before 7 o'clock or whatever the start time, you're late. So we have to give that. Excuse me?
No, I thought you were done, so I was going to ask you a question.
It's just that I'm just using my experience because I think that would be the right thing. But an hour, I think, is a little too much. But I would say a good half an hour, give them that leeway, let them come in. They got to, whatever they got to have a parking space that's out of the way and stuff. And they can do their thing, they get their instructions or whatever it is, and they should be out on the, on the road at a reasonable time. Like I said.
So the question I was going to ask you, I think you just answered. You think the window should be a half hour on each end?
Correct, because if you give them an hour, it could really, you're talking 6 o'clock. I mean, 6:30, if they show 5 minutes early or whatever, that's fine. You got to give the leeway. But I think a half an hour should be sufficient for, to park the car, doing the thing, who's assigned, what truck they're assigned to, or whatever they're doing. And then, they should be out of that place by 7 o'clock or whatever the start time. The owner, whoever's got his business, whatever he feels is the start. Normally it's 7 o'clock. Everybody likes to start at 7, get back by 3:30 or 4 or whatever it is, and get the heck out. So half an hour in and half an hour out. I think.
Cindy, I see your hand back up.
In all due respect for John's professional work and for his opinion, I actually disagree with that. I actually was in business myself too, and I actually don't think half hour is enough. You certainly want your employees off, but there's a lot of prep work for a lot of different activities. So I support the hour.
This is not Putnam.
John, that was my own business I'm talking about.
It's, it's not, again, we're not making any hard and fast decisions tonight. We're gathering opinions. So we've got a couple here. Does anybody else have anything to chime in on the issue of numbers or limits on employees?
All depends on the size of the business when it grows. We don't know if it gets too big for it, then he needs to probably look for a commercial property. But that's on him.
All right, so we'll move on to limits on the hours of operation. So this would be new number 7. An NLE shall be subject to the following limitations on hours of operation. A, an NLE which anticipates customers or clients to visit the site shall be open to the public no more than 12 hours per day. This is very similar, by the way, to what we already have. No more than 12 hours per day, and any such hours shall be between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Variations to this is what's new. Variations to this requirement may be proposed by the applicant with a rationale provided to the Commission for consideration, but in no case shall an NLE be open to the public for more than 56 hours per week. B, and this again gets to our test case recently. An NLE which, due to the standards of its trade, requires an earlier on-site start to the day, but where the daily operations occur off-site, for example, construction and landscaping trades, may propose a start of business as early as 6 a.m. Monday through Friday and 7 a.m. on Saturdays, but such associated activities shall be limited to 1 hour or perhaps a half an hour, depending on where you eventually go with it, of at each end. At each end of the business day. The area where such activities occur shall be subject to the provisions of 275-14.1b 6c2 above. That's where the additional buffering screening is referred to. C, a statement of the anticipated hours of operation shall be submitted along with the site plan. The Commission may, at its discretion and with justification of its reasoning, impose further limitations upon hours of operation of the NLE to avoid conflict with residential uses. Does anybody have any comments, thoughts, or questions on those suggested standards for hours of operation? Okay, hearing none. So this is all new and also came out of the workshop and some feedback that we got. Subsection C, periodic review and business expansion. The Commission acknowledges that businesses may grow and expand and is happy to see local entrepreneurs succeed. However, expansion of a home-based business may result in activities that exceed regulatory requirements and therefore risk invalidation of the permit. The following provisions are intended to help business owners avoid any inadvertent violations of a home occupation or NLE permit. 1. Home occupation or NLE permit holders are strongly advised to pay close attention to the parameters and conditions under which their permits are approved. They are further encouraged to seek the advice and assistance of town staff and the commission as their businesses grow before the conditions of the original permit are exceeded. 2. Once the permit for the home occupation or NLE is approved, the home-based business shall be subject to periodic inspection by the ZEO to ensure that the business is operating within the conditions of the permit. Such inspections shall occur every 3 years following the initial approval. 3. If a home-based business, upon inspection, is found to have exceeded the conditions of the original permit, the permittee shall be required to submit a plan to the commission detailing A, how the business will be brought back into compliance with the permit, or B, the plan for the business to pursue the appropriate permit type to accommodate the business expansion. 4. Upon review of the correction or expansion plan, the commission may grant the permittee a reasonable period of time to execute the plan. The time frame for such permit extensions will be granted on a case-by-case basis following consultation with town staff and the commission. And 5, no more than 2 such extensions shall be granted to any individual home-based business. Does anybody have any comments, questions, suggestions about this new suggested set of standards for review and expansion? Cindy, go ahead.
I just want to make sure, especially on the home occupation, this isn't retroactive to current home occupations as far as checking on them in 3 years, is it?
I mean, they weren't approved under that standard, so
Right.
I would say
So,
no.
yeah, I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, moving on, and then that'll be the end of the shorter rewrite, and then we'll go to the all the bells and whistles one. And I think we do have enough time to get through both. D, prohibited uses. No home occupation or NLE application shall be approved that proposes any of the following uses: adult entertainment, alcohol retail sales or bars, cannabis retail sales, drive-throughs of any kind, gasoline fuel stations of any kind, smoke or vape shops. Pretty straightforward. And again, some workshop feedback we had. It wasn't like overwhelming feedback, but we did have a few people who wanted to be clear that some things just plain old aren't allowed in these residential type businesses. Go ahead, Dave.
Tara, or I guess the commissioners, I was concerned about, this is for, small businesses and startups. Do we want to limit like what would be a satellite business to a larger scale business?
Can you cite an example that is occurring to you?
The one that keeps coming back to my mind is a car dealership or selling used cars.
So, and Cindy, you can chime in on here, but I would say car dealerships are covered by a very distinct set of regulations, which has to do with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And you've already identified 2 districts in town where they are allowed, or maybe even only 1. No, 2, the BDD and the Corridor Development District. Cindy, do you concur that motor vehicles are entirely under the jurisdiction of ZBA?
Well, they're under the jurisdiction of the ZBA for a certificate of location, but depending on the table of uses, they have to come and get the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval, and I believe it's a special permit, such as the guy on Route 44, which never followed through. for various reasons, but he had to do both.
Okay.
So
So
you
you're suggesting, Dave, that you should also specifically prohibit auto sales?
Well, I mean, it was more satellite businesses, but I mean, the one that comes to mind is the one down here on Port of Plain. You know, it was brought to us it could possibly be, you know, NLE. I think maybe I'm concerned. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just a special permit. But in any event, the person had a car dealership in Upton or wherever it was, Millville, and he wanted to bring some classic cars here and wanted to put 20 cars as a satellite of that business.
I see what you're saying now. Okay, yeah. So that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have a strong opinion on it. My initial feeling is that if it conforms to all of the requirements, and remember, all of these home-based businesses, although we didn't like touch on these because it's not something that we're suggesting to amend, that it's got to be the primary residence of the business owner.
That was my next thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And this guy
my,
was primary.
yeah.
Yeah,
It has
primary
to be.
residence of the business owner.
Yeah.
If the business use adheres to whatever set of standards you guys agree to, setbacks, lot sizes, parking requirements, employee requirements, screening, then whether it's a part of a franchise or not might not really be that relevant. And the case that's coming to my mind, different than the case that's coming to your mind, is in a very simple home occupation setting, somebody might be a part of a larger mortgage originating group. Well, that's a satellite business. But if they're doing it all within the context of their home office, they're not violating any standards of the home occupation. So a different example, but one that I think is a sort of a flip side of what you're suggesting. Does that make sense?
That's valid too. Okay. Like I said, as I thought through it, it might not even be applicable with the NLE, but
Can I make
Cindy, yeah, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with David. Because of the case of that came for Port Plain Road, and then another person down the street wanted to do the same thing. I just think auto dealerships should be forbidden on NLE. I think it's just you're just opening a can of worms in the neighborhood with that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Now, are we making a distinction between auto dealerships and onesie-twosie guys?
Well, we have one that has a certificate of location to sell 2 vehicles under home occupation. Then he has DMV approval. So, yeah, there should be a limit on it. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to just drop a note to myself.
And I did have one complaint on this person, and he knows, and that complaint, I followed through on it, and he denied, the complaint, obviously. But if it gets worse, if more complaints come in, then you certainly have to pay more attention to it.
Yeah.
This complaint, he said that it was his own personal vehicle. So I think it's a contentious situation in residential areas when you're selling cars.
Yeah, and obviously part of the point of writing or reworking these sections is to reduce opportunities for conflict between neighbors.
Right.
So it's definitely something to think about. Maybe you and I can talk more about what at the office, what seems to be problematic, what seems not to be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
so So Terry, it's written in here somewhere. I just don't want to lose that thought about it's mandatory the business owner occupies the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The easiest place for you to look at it so that I don't have to go away from
Oh,
screen
that's okay.
share is
Yeah.
in the full report that I did from the workshop.
Yeah.
I include the entire text of HOMOCs and NLEs, both versions, the shorter version and the long version, but all of the, got to be the primary residence, blah, 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 so that you can
Yeah.
see the whole thing out. Just for the sake of brevity in this discussion draft, I didn't include anything that wasn't suggested for edits.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a difference between primary owner or primary occupant. You can occupy it and still get a home occupation permit as long as you have the property owner states that you can have that home occupation. So
Yes.
you don't have on a home occupation, you do not have to own the property. So
That is correct, but it does still have to be the primary residence.
right, it does. So
Yes.
so how are you going to work that with NLE? Are you going to
It's the
require that
same.
be the primary resident or, excuse me, you're going to require the resident of the property or the owner of the property on an NLE?
Right now, and I have no reason to suggest otherwise, it is the same because
Okay,
these are all home-based businesses. So the
okay,
implication is that it's the home of the business owner, whether
okay,
that business owner also owns the home or rents the home. And if the business owner is renting the home, absolutely, they would need to have the notarized statement from the property
right,
owner that the property owner is aware of. There's no reason to change that in my
okay,
mind.
Yeah,
all right.
didn't we already, I'm sorry, didn't we already do that with the lizard guy?
I think the lizard guy owned the house. But
Oh,
we've definitely done it before, Jane, to your
yeah,
point.
okay, all right, yeah, I'm just trying to pull it up. Okay.
Yeah, the
Yep.
Lizzie guy owns it. As a matter of fact, they're coming back for ground mounted solar Monday. So yeah, they own the house now. Yes.
You're talking
Yeah,
Brickyard
but there
Road.
have been plenty of examples, Jane, where a tenant will have a small business and Cindy, make sure that they have the notarized
Notarized.
statement from the homeowner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the shorter version. I'll give you the longer version. I think we can get it done, especially since some of it is repetitive, so I won't include the repetitive stuff. So the longer version of the home-based business section is all the possibilities and also includes more detail without being prescriptive in the types of businesses that might qualify for each. And so I'll read this preamble for home occupations. I think that might be more clarifying than me trying to paraphrase and describe. And then we'll take it from there. So in this larger rewrite, I would suggest retitling the whole section to home-based businesses because there's now 3 types. So under home occupations, the basic ones, the simple one, the first part here in 1 is as it's already in your regs, and then the second part is the additional. Home occupations. The purpose of these regulations is to provide economic opportunities in all districts by permitting the operation of small businesses which are capable of coexisting with residential uses without undue adverse effects on the quality of life, environment, aesthetics, and property values of the district. So here's what's new. Examples of business types appropriate for the home occupation include, but are not limited to, home-based office uses, sole proprietor professional services such as attorneys, architects, engineers, financial advisors, accountants, etc., journeyman trades where no more than the permitted number of employees are ever at the home site and daily business activity takes place off-site, artisan studios with no retail component such as tailors, cobblers, photographers. The common characteristics of home occupations are that they result in no visual disruption to the existing neighborhood and introduce no more vehicular traffic than that typical of residential uses. And then number 2, this is just a slight grammatical suggestion. not really content, but just for the sake of the record. 2, in all districts, a home occupation application shall be filed with and approved by the ZEO. Proposed activities which the ZEO determines to be questionable under the standards of a home occupation may be referred to the commission for approval. So that's just tightening that language up a little. Again, a little more clarity in terms of the types of alterations or structures that can be used for the home occ. Under C, activities or storage associated with the home occupation shall only take place within the residential structure or within a fully enclosed accessory building consistent in form with residential use and construction, for example, a shed, garage, or barn. In other words, you can't be building like a cement garage with a lift in it and call it a home occ. You might be able to do one of the other categories, but it wouldn't be a home occ. Make sense?
Hi, Kira, it's Ryan. Can I ask a question real quick? This came up in the NLE workshop that you hosted. We had a question about a farm store or a farm stand, which does, exist at a few of the local farms in town. And if that fell under the NLE or the home occ, and I think it actually falls under.
It actually falls under neither, Ryan. They have separate regulations of their own that are very generous. Yep. Essentially, you just need a zoning permit. You just need to come in, tell Cindy what you're going to do, and she's going to sign off on it. Make sure that you're hitting your setbacks. That's all.
Okay, that's fair. And I'm talking about new and existing, I guess. So say there was a new farm that would come in, that would also be covered, even if we had NLE regulations that would not apply. It would still fall under the.
Correct. It's an entirely separate
under the farming regs. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Good question, though. And then again, here a little sort of more specific language as to what kind of visuals are acceptable in the home occ. Under G, a separate entrance may be added to accommodate for the home occupation, provided it would be consistent with, and this is the change, the architectural style and materials of the existing residential structure subject to approval by the ZEO. Minor changes to the home occ section, again, just making it a little clearer and giving examples. B, neighborhood limited enterprises. And again, we're going to omit all the stuff that we just went over. This is just stuff that's specific to this more intensive rewrite. Neighborhood limited enterprises, NLEs, are small businesses that may be reasonably pursued in a residential district, but which may be shown to cause sufficient intensification of use as to require review and approval by the commission. Such intensification may include, but is not limited to, increased need for parking, increased outdoor activity associated with the business, or increased vehicle traffic. Here's the new stuff. Examples of business types appropriate for the neighborhood limited enterprise include, but are not limited to, personal services where small numbers of clients or customers may be visiting the site at once, such as home, hair, or nail salons, up to 3 chairs, pet training or grooming, fitness coaching, dance, music, art classes. Construction or landscaping trades of up to 10 employees where daily activity occurs off-site, but crews may convene for the job on-site. Craftsman trades such as woodworking, cabinetry shops, small machinists, welders, fabricators, whose activity can be confined to an accessory structure. Caterers, artists, artisans with home galleries. The common characteristics of the NLE are that they minimize additional visual impacts to the neighborhood, but allow for a modest increase in use of the property, localized traffic rates, and number of employees who may operate on site during certain hours. So that's the only piece in the NLE section that's different from what we just read. So this C is a concept that we did talk about in the workshop. I'll be totally honest, I don't really think you guys are going to bite on this, but since only 4 of you plus Cindy were at the workshop, I just wanted to present it as an option. Maybe you'll love it. I got no dog in this fight. I just wanted to show you what's possible. So C would be a new category called an accessory commercial unit. You may note to yourself that this is similar in language to an accessory dwelling unit, and it's very similar in concept. An accessory commercial unit, ACU, is a structure or portion of a structure dedicated to commercial use that is contained within, attached to, or detached from a residential structure on a lot in a primarily residential area and is open to customers, clients, or patrons. Due to this forward-facing nature, ACUs are limited to certain higher traffic areas within otherwise primarily residential districts and have a higher standard of review than either home occupations or NLEs. ACUs may also be subject to limitations of customer patron capacity imposed by building and/or fire codes, which are outside the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but must be accounted for prior to any construction related to the ACU. Examples of appropriate businesses for an ACU include, but are not limited to, micro retail stores or boutiques, small food service establishments with limited hours and seating capacity, general practice medical dental offices, personal care services, artisan studios or galleries, fitness centers or gyms, music, dance, art schools. The common characteristics of the ACU are that they are assumed to be forward-facing, thus generating customer traffic, and they are more identifiably distinct from the residential use of the property. For these reasons, they are more limited in their allowable locations than either home occupations or NLEs. 1. An ACU may be proposed for a residential property in any zoning district of the town of Thompson except the Lake District, where an ACU is not an allowable use and shall not be permitted. 2. An application for an ACU shall be subject to the special permit level of review by the Commission with a properly noticed public hearing according to the requirements of, I think this citation is wrong, but Cindy, you can give me the right citation tomorrow. The point is that we have special permit procedures. Correct citation. 3. The application for the ACU shall conform to the standards for both a home occupation and an NLE with any exceptions as described below and the following additional standards. 4. An ACU shall only be permitted if the residential lot has frontage on a high-volume road, either a state highway route or a rural collector road. A rural collector road is a local road which connects at both ends to one or more state highway routes. 4A, in the case of an ACU proposed on a state highway route, the application shall include a letter of approval from CTDOT for any proposed driveway aprons for parking related to the ACU. 4B, if any additional parking area is proposed for construction related to the ACU, such parking area shall be located to the side or rear of the ACU and configured in such a way as to prevent any obstruction to sightlines related to the public right-of-way. 5. Regardless of the minimum lot size of the underlying district, an ACU shall require a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet. The purpose of this requirement is to provide sufficient separation from neighboring residences and sufficient area for any parking requirements, while also encouraging infill development in higher traffic areas. 6. An ACU shall not be permitted on a lot served by a driveway shared with other residential lots or on an interior lot stacked behind other residential lots. If the driveway is shared with a business or commercial lot, or if the interior lot is stacked behind a business or commercial lot, then this prohibition shall not apply. 7. The ACU shall front upon and be oriented to the public right-of-way, except in the case of an ACU proposed on a lot which shares a driveway with or is interior to a business or commercial lot. 8. The ACU shall have a separate entrance from the main entrance or entrances to the primary residential building on site. Depending on the configuration and use proposed, the Thompson Fire Marshal may impose additional fire separation requirements, which shall be shown on the site plan as part of the application. 9. The ACU shall be clearly subordinate in size to the primary residential dwelling. 10, the ACU shall be limited to 1 story in height and shall have access from the ground floor only. 11, a maximum of 1 ACU may be permitted on any given parcel. And 12, the standards for the number of employees and hours of operation shall be the same as those for the NLE. And then the periodic review and prohibitions were the same. So, like I say, just introducing that for your consideration. Would love to hear your thoughts. It is a new concept. Kind of cool. Do you guys think it's appropriate for Thompson? That's up to you. But I would like to hear your thoughts. And then we're very close to time, so we got 10 minutes. Oh, surely someone has some thoughts.
I just think it's a lot for all of you to digest it, in 10 minutes of discussion. I think something that people need to think on. I mean, I'm not
Fair.
a commission member, but
No, totally fair. Anybody? Anybody?
Jane,
I think it would be appropriate for certain districts, but not maybe in others. It would be my initial thought. But the concept itself, I'm trying to think of tangible examples of, and I guess I generally like it, is my initial impression. But I think there's got to be specific districts where it may or may not be applicable, I guess is my.
I'm going along with that. I'm going along with that as well. I mean, I can think of a couple of places in town that already have something like that, but it has to be to specific areas. You're opening up a can of worms with this one, and it definitely needs to be restricted to most of the areas and only have a couple of areas where it will be allowed.
Well, it is definitely limited, right? It's definitely limited to state highways or a rural collector. That's a real thing, right? It is a road which is considered a local commuter road that gets you to the state highway. Examples, let me think. Joe Tasic sent me a partial list of some of them, but Main Street is a rural collector. I believe Wilsonville Road is a rural collector. Buckley Hill, right? Buckley Hill connects to 12 and 200. He had a whole list too, and I don't remember what the other ones, but that's the nature, right? It's getting you from the state routes where traffic is moving at a slightly higher speed into the local neighborhoods on these collector routes. But that's just a suggestion. You guys can do whatever you, I mean, you can do nothing with it if you want. It's like I say, it's just a suggestion.
That's my thought. We're already doing the NLEs, the home occupation, everything else. Let's get those things under our belts and get them in to see what kind of situations we're going to get into. And I think the ACUs right now, we've got an awful lot on our plate on this, and we've still got some other things that are coming up. So this one we can put on the back burner for a while. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, totally valid. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Scott.
Is there a point where these small businesses are actually taxed besides a residential tax as a business tax for the town?
So the question is better posed to the assessor. The short answer, as I understand it, is obviously if you're building a structure, your structures are taxed, right? Structures are taxed. So if you're building a residential addition, if you're building a barn, if you're building a garage, that all adds into your property tax assessment. If you are filing your taxes and including your equipment, there are rules around that taxation. I do not pretend to know what they are. I can tell you that there are some state incentives where if you're doing manufacturing, and you could theoretically have a fabricator, right? Because of the way fabrication has changed, that would fit maybe in a workshop on a home property. That would fall under the exemption categories, but those are definitely better questions to the assessors. It wouldn't be like this crazy windfall in new tax revenue for the town, except in as far as new structures are added. Go ahead, Dave. You're on mute.
No, you can keep going. I just,
Well,
you're
I was
done?
mostly done. Yeah, I was mostly done. So.
No. All right, just one comment. So, well, more of a question. Cindy, anything you can think of that would fall or has come before us or you've heard about that would fall into this category, just to give us some sort of a baseline? Sounds like we're all struggling with trying to see what would fit into this category.
Well, I recently had someone who wanted to set up an ice cream um, business on Wilsonville Road, which goes into is a collector road for the highway. And then another issue that I'm working with a young lady on is a nail salon that she wants to set up on her grandmother's property. And I have to, do some more work on that one. So those are the two that are on the top of my head right now. Um, the other two were the trailers down at 520 Riverside. I don't know if that doesn't, because that's business, so business district, but nothing that I can think of the top of my head for um this type of ACU. No.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of some that are already existing in those areas, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
it's I guess not that new of a concept. It's just we're defining it, I guess, and
Yeah, I would say
putting it.
that's probably an accurate statement, Dave. It's to capture the various permutations in some cases that do already exist, although in the cases that are exist in Thompson, they're probably grandfathered uses. But also to open up possibilities since we're so structurally challenged, right, in terms of like building entrepreneurship. I say it all the time. It's, part of my patter. We don't really have storefront properties anymore. We're working on them in the downtown Mill District, but, that's like a years long project. And people may, in fact, want to run their businesses out of their homes. And as I mentioned in the workshop, human history, right, until you get to like the post-World War II American universe, people's businesses were in their homes,
Yeah.
right? You didn't commute out. People came to you for your services. Um, I just by way of sort of random examples, I can remember when I was doing summer stock theater in northern Vermont, right, 20 minutes from the Canadian border. Um, People had like breakfast and lunch restaurants that were attached to their homes because those rural communities had no downtowns. So it's not that it's necessarily rural or urban. It's just like using the resources that you have in an efficient way. But like I say, I have no dog in this fight. I think it's a cool concept. My feeling is that you guys might feel the same, that it's a cool concept, but as Jane says, maybe for eventually. But I did want to give you all of the information, or as much of the information that I gave to the workshop folks to consider, because you are the guys who ultimately approve regulations.
Yeah, I think my point was just that we have these already that coexist. Um, I I can go either way. We could put it off, but I think it is something that at some point we should address. I think of like a butcher, having a walkout cooler and a little butcher shop. on their property or something, but I just wanted to bring that up that it was, they already coexist in harmony.
Tara,
Yes, sir.
what you just said about Upper Vermont, I know where you're talking. I was up there, and the people that had the breakfast, or you could have lunch at their house, they had it set up with tables or whatever. It was all for convenience, because if you wanted to go eat to some restaurant, you had to travel 25 miles to get to a good restaurant to have breakfast. So, your real rural areas, people did it. And, and it gave them a little bit of income, and stuff like that. That was back in the day. You're right. That's the way it was back then. That was called convenience. And a lot of people used to like it. They didn't have to drive 15 miles, 20 miles to go have breakfast or a lunch or whatever. So, but it didn't hurt the environment, so to speak.
Right. And I think to tag on to, or to maybe branch off from Scott's question a minute ago about, whether it remits more property taxes. And, the short answer is yes, but they're, probably minimal unless large structures are being built. There's more than one reason to encourage business development. One is that taxation piece. The other is that it, actually puts dollars into the pockets of your own residents, right? They're more self-sufficient. It keeps those dollars circulating within the community. And again, is closer to the actual historic pattern of human development. Like we've changed the pattern of growth and development in the last 70, 80, 100 years in ways that are comparatively radical if you look at the way communities naturally evolved. Again, not to say that this is good, bad, or indifferent, just, that's my spiel. It is 2 minutes after 9. We've gotten through almost everything. We're certainly not going to get through the cannabis section tonight. And we have the graveling stuff for when Santos comes back. Does anybody have any wrap-up thoughts, comments, or whatever before we call it?
There, just look at your calendar, and we'll put the Santos gravel thing and the cannabis thing together. I think we could do that in maybe one night. Or do you think we still have to continue with what we just?
Well, we've got the ability to hold. I mean, what are we? We're in July.
Yeah.
And because of the existing cannabis moratorium, you have to make some set of choices by your February 2027 meeting.
Yeah.
One monthly meeting through the rest of the months this year, and maybe a few extras, maybe 2 in January and 2 in February. I think that gets you enough time. But we can, when more of us are around the table on Monday at the monthly meeting, we can bump calendars then.
That's a good thing. That's the way. Okay, why don't we do that for Monday night? Get a consensus from everybody. What is the, what do we want to do the next one and everything. This way we can, like, if we can get more people like we got tonight to sit in, I think we accomplished a lot tonight.
Yeah, you guys had good coverage tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 commissioners, plus Cindy and me. That's pretty good coverage.
When was the last time we had that?
Indeed. So, Mr. Chairman, if you're comfortable with adjourning at 9:04, I'm happy to wrap.
Yep. The meeting is adjourned at 9:04.
Have a lovely evening, folks.
Night.
Good night,
So
everyone.
everybody
You
have a
too.
good.
Thank you.
See you Monday night. Not see you Monday night. See you all on. See you on Zoom Monday night.
We'll see you here. Yes.
Yes. All right.
Bye,
Good
guys.
night.
Good night.
Where is my, let me get this out of here. There we go.